Cause I'm about that. Cause I'm about that. I'm about that come up, running up on them fools that are talking foolish. Try to get them funds up, killing the mic just like I ran the jewels in. Y'all gonna get done up front, knowing that kid with an attitude, but you can't really blame this motherfucker for what he had to do. I'm about that cash flipping, I'm getting it on and off the market. Not about that VIP, not me, not never been a fan of carpets. All about that RIP for all of my Jesus gone departed. All about that finish what I started, I'm about that.
Top down like you're not ready. We ride, we're about that. So high we see the whole city. We own the night. Down like you're not ready. We ride, we're about that. So high we see the whole city. We own the night.
Nothing about it, want a man I can bring the drama. But it ain't by chance, I'm fucking rapping, you don't really want a problem. Made a little cash in the back end, but still rapping like I'm starving. Yeah, y'all gotta ask who the man is, hope I'm gonna be like, beg your pardon. I'm about that.
Top down like you're not ready. We ride, we're about that. So high we see the whole city. We own the night. Down like you're not ready. We ride, we're about that. So high we see the whole city. We own the night.
And welcome into the YSN Power Hour. It is a Monday edition. And ladies and gentlemen, August 3rd, we have officially made it through July. Thank you, Lord. Now what's waiting for us in August? We have a lot of questions, not a whole lot of answers. We've had the killer hornets or whatever the heck those were called. The COVID is still on the run. But guys, when we turn the page, it is National Watermelon Day. So when you look at things, are you a watermelon fan? Do you need a little extra something with watermelon, whether it be salt or an adult beverage? Tell me where you stand on the one of my favorite fruits, or is it vegetable? Who the hell knows? Ty Bartell, lead us off.
Just straight up watermelon. I love it. I actually look forward to summer just because of you get the best watermelons during that, and I think watermelon goes good with pretty much anything. I think it's always a cookout specialty to always have just like a bowl of watermelon.
Seeds or seedless?
It doesn't matter. It does. Watermelon's a watermelon. I don't care either way.
Jamie Thompson, if you eat a watermelon seed, will it grow in your stomach?
Pretty sure it does. Yeah, it happened to my cousin actually this one time. But huge fan of watermelon, and I just looked it up. I think Wikipedia said it was a vegetable, but I don't know. It's Wikipedia. Can't trust them for anything.
We don't know what's going on. We don't know which way's up anymore. And speaking of, here is your boy. You're my boy Blue, and he spelled your wrong. So congratulations on that, Teach.
Oh, good job, man. Good job. Stop making dedication, bud.
Go ahead, Bayou Bob.
Yeah, I like watermelon with salt, a little bit of salt. Had about a half a bowl of it yesterday. Got a brand new watermelon in the fridge today, so we're good to go.
Can you put watermelon in the fridge? Is that where it's supposed to go?
No, that's where I put it.
Dynamite. All right, the bigger sexy and Quinn.
I'm not a huge watermelon fan at all. I'd rather eat like apples or oranges over watermelon.
Quinn?
Weird, man. I love it. I love watermelon. I love everything that's flavored as watermelon. Anything watermelon, I'm all in on.
Anthony Hartwig joins us. Anthony, it's National Watermelon Day. You in on watermelon?
Not big on watermelons, guys. Gotta be honest. It kind of it's too watery, not a lot of flavor for me, and not going with watermelon. I'm with that, KD. I'd rather eat like an apple or maybe some grapes. Those are my go-to fruits. So
apples and grapes? Okay.
Or like bananas. I mean, oranges. I can chew on an orange, but apples good to go. Pears good to go. Pineapple good to go. Grapes.
Pineapple's where it's at. I'm with you. But watermelon, there's something Americana about watermelon in the summer. So let's get to some sports. First, before we get to that, we got some apologies to our viewers from that Friday show. What an absolute train wreck that was. I'm not going to point out anybody in particular as to why our show was an absolute train wreck, but there's the conductor right there.
Toot.
That was all on me.
Yeah. So we were battling bad internet in the middle of the country at an 18-hole golf course. We didn't make it the entire way through the course. Steve had to go home early. We set up. We had people pinging off of our internet, so you saw us kind of come and go. It was a train wreck. There was some White Claws, and you had Puff Daddy down in the corner that was smoking away on a stogie. So from the bottom of our hearts, we want to apologize to you, the viewer. A lot of people loved it, which was kind of crazy. But, from a production standpoint, I felt like we let everybody down. So just to let you know, it won't happen again. And so that's our formal apology.
Can't promise that.
We hope it won't happen again. Anytime we put some of these characters on the air, it's much like a cartoon without a script. So that's our apology. Guys, while we were away Friday night, the Creekside Championship took place, and after years of knocking on the door, Creekside finally kicks it down, wins the 18U championship over the Astro Falcons 6-0 on Friday night. There was a lot of sportsmanship going around, which is good because naturally that's what the Class B is all about. Were you impressed by the Creekside Championship, kind of against all odds, knowing what they were up against with the Astro Falcons? Paulie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, going into that, I was down there for the last week to do a couple games, and the Astros, all three teams, 14, 16, 18U, I think they combined to only have like 2 or 3 losses in the entire season. So it was kind of crazy, but you got to give it credit to you there, DJ, because you actually said right before that series started that you thought that Creekside, had the momentum and that they were going to, finally maybe knock down that door, and coming out there with the 2-0 victory, taking the first 2 games, and then, did they shoot out too big of a lead and waste a lot of their arms? I don't know. They went to game 5, but they shut the door and did it for them. So good for them. It was good to see.
Jamie, you had a chance to call that game. It was, even though Astro didn't score, did it feel like Creekside had something to prove coming into it?
Definitely did. Starting off 2-0 in the series and then giving us 2 games back, they really kind of had an extra jolt in them for that game 5. Brought in, I think it's Anthony Miller was his name. He's committed to Auburn. He's only played like 6 games, maybe the whole year. So he was a real ringer, but it never felt like Creekside was completely in control. Astro had a lot of opportunities to score and they just kind of squandered them, but it was a great game overall. Actually, apologies to one of our viewers there. I thought a kid got thrown out. Turns out he was injured, so felt bad about that one, but also feels good to put on this hat. I predicted it.
Oh, look at this guy. Bust out the hat. Yeah, and that's another thing that we kind of – when you're in that booth, there's not a whole lot of communication going on between the field and the press box. So I tried to handle it the best I could. Greg Johnson was the kid's name. Took a HBP, I think, in the arm. Actually, supposedly broke his arm. So our thoughts and prayers with him. I know he's going to play college baseball. Tough son of a gun because he actually came out to finish the inning. And then frustration took over, and we had it was just a misinformation, and that's all it was. So we apologize to anybody that was hurt by that information or that how that was misconstrued. Greg Johnson, was not tossed from the game. So all thumbs up for him. He's a high character player. We love him. We love his parents down in Georgia. Fantastic group, and hopefully that everything works out well for him on his comeback. But yeah, Creekside winning the championship. It was huge for a couple different reasons. There's so much opportunity for teams in this Class B league now to take a step forward, because now the monkey's kind of off the back of the Class B league. Everybody always says the Astros have it wrapped up. When Baird was around, Baird has it wrapped up. Now there's opportunity where there can be a little bit more of a fluidity, or so to speak, in the league, and you can see players step up because now everybody knows or everybody sees that the Astros can be defeated. So I think this is going to be good for the league. I think it also gasses up the engine for the Astros as well. If I know Pletch, and I know Pletch, I think this is going to put a little chip on their shoulder and do an extra push-up or 2 in every rep to make sure that they can come back and get their title back home for Astros. So congratulations once again, Creekside. We're all excited for the season that was, and what a season it was, boys. A month and a half of solid baseball each and every day. Anthony Hartwig leading the charge from behind the scenes with the content. And do you know what to do with your time now that you don't have to report baseball, 7 games a night?
Well, it's going to be a lot of brainstorming on just how to try to stay content driven and get things up on our site, since you definitely want to kind of fill the hole that Class B is going to leave. It was definitely a lot of content for our site, and my job in the next week or so is to kind of build a plan for the month of August to try to keep our site filled with content in the next month until fall sports starts.
Well, what's going to be fun over the next week or so is breaking news on Ron Potesta's show earlier. We will be the home of the Mahoning Valley AA League Championship this week. I believe it starts on Wednesday. We will have all that action right here on ysnlive.com. So we're excited to kind of take another push up into the sky of baseball while we can. And and this is a perfect segment into our first topic, the OHSAA Hot Potato. On my social media today, guys, I put it out there. This is the worst game of hot potato between the OHSAA and the state that I've ever seen in my life. On Friday, there was all kind of buzz about this 4:55 press conference. Naturally, when it came out, we did it on the Power Hour. Everything is moving forward, right? Oh, not so fast. We talked about how Tuesday things would change. Not even 24 hours later, the OHSAA and the state come out and say, well, we're going to make sure everything is, all these tests, the 72-hour testing will be in effect. Guys, somebody's got to make a decision at this point, right? I mean, we'll talk about the testing a little bit later. We could talk a little bit about it now. I don't even know where to start with this one. Paul, when you look at this, the state just kind of pulling the wool over our eyes for a minute, and then all of a sudden we're back out, and we don't know if we're playing and who's going to be footing the bill. What's your thoughts?
I mean, like you said, on Friday there was a big buzz. We were all out at that golf outing, and there was plenty of ADs out there and coaches, and everybody was talking about it and trying to figure out what was going on. And at first, like you said, it seemed like the state said, "Oh, okay, hey, we're going to push forward, guys. Everything's good to go August 1st tomorrow," which would have been Saturday. Let's go play football and do the contact sports. And then, like you said, within Saturday, all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, they're extending the order that was supposed to expire on July 31st of 72 hours before a competition. You need to make sure you're tested and all the tests come back negative before you can, because the thing is too, is if one kid tests positive, the entire team's done. You're going to cancel that contest. And that upset a whole lot of people. I mean, and the internet and social media was just blowing up all weekend long. And now there's all those, petitions that are out there. They want people to sign and try to get it changed. I mean, Tim Street did come out a little bit. I saw an interview with him, and he did say, listen, we're going to try to talk with the governor's office and the health department and try to change this a little bit, because we understand that. And he made a good point. He goes, our local high schools are not like the pros. We don't have the money that they do. We don't have the ability to test the kids as often as they are testing these professional athletes. And he said, we understand that. And he goes, if the people don't have any symptoms, if they just do the one test, then that should probably be enough. And we'll see if they can make that work or not. If not, I mean, this is just the way I think of and I'm going to speak frankly, I think it's a coward's way of them being able to back out and put all the blame on the schools and say, oh, look, you can't afford to do this testing and you can't do it. Well, guess what? You can't play sports. And I think that's a shame if that's what they're going to do.
Here's where I feel, and I know we already talked about the hot potato, but the more I think of it, I think this is a better analogy. I feel like when you're young and mommy and daddy get into a fight and they send you upstairs to your room and you kind of peek your ear out there to see what they're talking about, and it doesn't make any sense to you, but it makes sense to them. I feel like that's where we are as spectators, as media, as fans. We're just kind of listening to these two bicker about and kind of talk around each other, and there's no decisions being made. Each one's waiting for the other one to slip, to your point, Paul. And I think that as the kid in the situation, the fans are like, all right, either ground me or don't. Just make a freaking decision. Just let's get it over with. Let's move on. Ty, are you in that same boat?
Honestly, yeah, and I've been saying this for a while about how I just can't stand the fact that these two aren't making a decision. And I think it's all grounded in the fact that they just don't want those eyes looking at them, as they don't want to make the decision because they don't want to make the call and then have all the scrutiny if they cancel the season or if the season goes forward and it's a disaster per se and there's a bunch of kids getting sick. And I think both of those, both the OHSAA and the government is trying to just avoid having that that, being under that microscope and being looked at for the decisions they make. And I honestly think it's just blame delegating. And I think they're just passing it back and forth, just, like you said, hoping for one of them to slip up so that way they can just, try to make a decision instead of one of them taking the initiative and making the decision for themselves.
JB, do you feel like getting grounded by mommy and dad? Like, do you just want a decision to be made or what?
Yeah, I do. And honestly, I'm starting to feel like Ty Bartell. Usually he's the one that's not feeling good about what's happening, and that's exactly how I feel right now. With all this stuff coming out, it's not looking good. And there's 3 schools in PA already that have shut down things for 2 weeks because someone either tested positive or knows someone that tested positive. And I think if everyone's getting tested all the time, while I think it's the right thing you need to do, it doesn't feel good. I don't have a good feeling about it.
Well, let's go to the constant name change. That is the Puff Daddy and Quinn. Go ahead.
I'm going to say no. I don't think there's going to be anywhere a chance that high school football goes on if this is how it's going to be. At this point, I said it on Friday. They should just cancel it. Don't wait until 2 weeks before the season starts. Don't wait until next week. If you're going to do it this week, just do it this week and cancel the season.
Quinn?
I mean, the biggest question I have with all this, after kind of looking at it and seeing everything, is who is actually having to foot the bill for it? I mean, these 3-day tests are not exactly cheap by any means, and I don't think schools have the ability to pay for all of it. So I'm just kind of curious as to who's actually paying for all these tests and everything that goes behind that before any decision actually comes out.
Yeah, I'm interested. Before we get to Anthony, I'm really interested because this just seems like an obstacle, right? So we're trained to get around obstacles and move on. My question is, if we get over this hurdle, how many hurdles are left? How many more aces in the back pocket is the state or the OHSAA going to put in front of us to play sports in the short timeline that we have to get there? Because we still haven't talked about insurance, guys. Who's picking up the if let's say you get all the money to pick up the tab for these tests as a school, who's picking up the tab for the insurance? Because right now I'm hearing that the insurance is sky high given the situation of if something bad happens, who's going to pick up the tab for who's paying that coverage? So I'm not trying to present a bad look. I'm just saying, okay, what else are we going to see come out of the woodwork that we haven't even thought of yet? So
another thing, though, to add to that, DJ, is that with the revenue that we always talk about with these football teams too, with these high schools that are trying to get football started because that's like a main source of revenue. Well, what happens if all that revenue has to go dump back into testing and then the sanitation of your facilities and everything, because you're going to have to sanitize it way more. And when you already have half the crowd in attendance, you're not making that much revenue at all. So you got to look at that. Is there a point to a football season? Are you going to even make any money?
You can't break even as a business right now, because if 70% of your revenue in sports is driven by football and you lose all that because of your testing, is there even any point in playing? And listen, we want it to happen. It's all for the kids. It's for what the things they'll have to go through later in life to build adversity, to build character. All these great things need to happen. But at the end of the day, if you don't think that the schools and the OHSAA, and it's a business. You have to be in the black. You can't be operating in the red. Schools cannot operate in the red, as I understand it. Anthony, when you look at it, talk to me about where you're seeing it from your perspective. You often bring a different perspective because you have the chance to kind of look back from 20 yards back and see the entire picture. What are you seeing?
It kind of reminds me of the first couple of days of negotiation with the MLB, where two people were on opposite sides of the spectrum. OHSAA came out on Friday and said, we're trucking along as is. And then the State Department came out later and said, no, we're going to have really strict recommendations and protocol. I think if we want to see fall sports, especially contact sports, we need to see a middle ground where, we're going to truck along and play, but there's going to be unified protocol, maybe like temperature checks before games, symptom checks before games, things like that. But to think that all these high schools are going to test everyone as much as the State Department thinks they will, it's ludicrous. And I think it's just a really opposite end of the spectrum that maybe a knee-jerk reaction to the OHSAA statement on Friday.
Now, let's keep in mind, guys, while we're looking at this, there are still sports that have been approved, low-contact sports. Golf starts, I believe, on Thursday. You have tennis as well, and you also have volleyball. Those 3 sports are fall sports that have been approved. We also have baseball, and we have softball as well, to my knowledge, have not been axed. Paul, have you heard anything else about baseball and softball to where summer leagues can turn into fall leagues and possibly give kids something to do if there is no football or other high contact sports?
From what I heard on Friday when I talked, like, again, with some ADs and some of the coaches, the switch the sports, it's too late. They've kind of gone past that time frame now.
No. Just to play sports. Just to like,
to play?
If you were
Yeah,
let's say community ball, you were able to put together another community ball for the fall. I know they came out and said that they're not going to do fall ball, but if football is canceled, I would like to be in that conversation of, can we do a fall league? And where is that damn bird coming from again?
I don't know.
Is that Jamie?
Not me.
It's not Jamie
me.
this time. It's got to be Captain Speakerphone down on his front porch.
Yeah, I don't know. There'll be like one bird in a tree. I mean, to see some fall baseball or softball, that'd be great. But the thing is, do you worry about, do some of the girls who play softball, are they now going to be involved with volleyball as well? So, I mean, something like that would be great to see. But if they don't have football, I think it's going to be chaos. I mean, because our kids going to want to try to play baseball or something like that. I don't know if they will. I mean, they might want to do something, but I can't see that being an option right now. I think, unfortunately, football is either going to be all or nothing. And if they don't have it, you're going to have a lot of people upset. But I think this is just, and we're the lower level. High school is the lower level. I know we'll get into it later in the show, but I mean, college and even pros right now, they're all saying they don't even know if they want to play. So,
well, the pros, we talked about this on Running Point. I'm in a situation where I look at the pro, just what they're doing, how they're acting, and they're trying to get as much money as they can with doing as minimal as possible. And one part of me can appreciate it, but the entrepreneur side of me says, listen, if you don't play, you shouldn't get money. And we'll talk about all that stuff in a little bit. But I just wanted to get kind of I hate talking about this, but this is the breaking news. The PIAA is looking at letting no fans in the stands. And that's kind of where the OHSAA has been trailing the PIAA here over the weekend, is they're following their concept. I would believe because of the proximity between Ohio and Pennsylvania. If there's no fans, the only person that benefits from this, only company really, is going to be YSN, because we're going to be on campus, we're going to have the games, and we'll be able to reconnect with everybody, the school-wide, nationwide, everybody. There's a part of me that's rooting for that, but we're still fans at heart, and we want that fan experience. It's going to be weird with no audio in the background, no cheering after a touchdown, no anything after that. But we're sitting here just trying to do the best we can reporting. We have the contracts with our schools. We're still excited. If there is football, if there is volleyball, if there are fall sports, YSN will be there to cover them. So I want to make sure that people realize that we will be there, because that's how we kind of divvied out the contracts ahead of time. So hopefully people realize that that's how we work. So again, we will once again and always be your home for live, loyal, and local here at YSN. Guys, when you look at some of the rule changes that we're looking at in Major League Baseball, Ty, this is kind of your topic that you wanted to bring up as we flip from the amateur ranks to the professional ranks. We talked a little bit about on Running Point, rule changes in baseball. Are they here to stay, or are they going to be short-lived? Let's go ahead and start with you, Ty, as you can lead this one.
All right, this is going to be a mouthful, because I hope most of these rules aren't here to stay. Right. All right. Because the first gripe I have is with the runner on second and extras. I'm not a fan of this rule change, and I hope going forward with a 162 game season, it's not like that. I just don't like the idea of a team that could put their fastest guy on second and just say, all right, here we go. I'd rather it just be whoever's next in the order. If you're going to do it, whoever's next in the order, fast, slow, whatever, should be on second. Because, I mean, at that point, it's just all about who has the most speed on a team. And not every Major League Baseball team has speed. I mean,
but it's the last batted out that goes to second base.
yeah, but I mean, it's also it's the same concept as if, like the NBA, if some teams just have like better free throw shooters. If we did that in overtime, let's just do free throws instead and put Shaq versus Miller. Or same thing in NFL. If we start the guys on the 2-yard line, hey, I have Peyton Barber, you have Ezekiel Elliott. Try to get a touchdown. I'm not a fan of that. I hate the idea of 7-inning games, whether it's a regular season, regular game doubleheader, because I feel baseball is a game that it's grounded in statistics, right? It's more grounded in statistics than most professional sports, right? Your complete games, your no hitters, perfect games will never hold the same weight as a 9-inning game will. And you may never see another 20 strikeout game again because there's only 21 outs in a 7-inning game rather than 27. So you may never see those 20 strikeout games that we've been seeing in recent years. I also don't like the universal DH rule. I think the one thing about baseball that made it unique was the National League and American League. It's two different strategies of the same game. You're basically watching two different ways to play baseball in one game. And I really enjoy going back and forth from a National League to an American League game because you see how these managers, they have to manage their teams differently and how the game is managed differently. I think it makes it a really interesting thing about baseball is just watching those two games. And I'd hate to see that National League adopt the DH permanently. The only thing that I kind of like as far as the rule changes is maybe an expansion of the playoffs. And I might be in the minority of this. I might be in the minority, but I also love the 1-game wild card. It's kind of like having a game 7 without having to play the 6 games first. I love the competition and how these managers are willing to do whatever it takes to get that win in a 1-game wild card. I know a lot of people dislike the wild card, but I personally like it. I think what people don't understand is that the expansion of baseball too is like baseball in the playoffs is very different. The players perform at different levels. Like Clayton Kershaw, you would think one of the best pitchers in regular season ever. Clayton Kershaw in the playoffs is not the same pitcher. So it's not always like where basketball in a 7-game series, you're going to see normally the team with the better players come out on top. In baseball, you're seeing a different team every time because it's a different defense every time because the pitcher is different. And just some things that go off of too with the wild cards. 3 times there was a wild card team that made it to the World Series. 2 times they won it, and 7 times the wild card team has made it to the championship series since 2012 when they implemented the 1-game wild card to get into the divisional series. So I think an expansion of baseball playoffs, maybe not to the 16 teams like they have right now, but maybe one more further expansion of the playoffs would be interesting because in baseball, anyone can really win it. And that's what I really enjoy about baseball. It's very stats driven, and it's a game where you have a chance to win every single time because of the pitcher that's on the mound. Hitters don't always hit. I think an expansion of the playoffs would be the only thing I'd try to keep. Maybe not a 16-team playoff series, or 16-team playoffs, but
Timeout. Did you just say baseball is a game that any team can win it?
Baseball,
Shut up, Jamie.
Baseball is a game where you can win 100+ games in a season and go into the playoffs and lose to a team that has won 85 games in a season.
I get that point, but
Like,
that team's also both teams are both spending $1 billion to get into the playoffs because they can get that, right? Baseball is the worst setup out of any major sport because of the no salary cap. It doesn't allow the small market teams to be able to get it. I'm all for the wild card. I just don't want to see 8 of them, right? I want to see 2 of them, maybe 4 of them, and that's it. But I also think it is a bad representation of baseball because you play 162 games and then the 163rd, you could win 100 games and then be gone. Like you're toast. Baseball's set up for series. That's why it's that long, and that's why it's 162 games. It's set up for 5 pitchers, 3 pitchers, whatever it may be. It's set up for a rotation. So you don't want to be just fortunate to have one good pitcher like the Cubs and Jake Arrieta or Madison Bumgarner or anybody like that. I'm just naming pitchers that obviously blew past the freaking Pirates whenever we finally did make the wild card. You wanted to have a series. Now, the Pirates won a wild card game, and it was awesome. It was fantastic. But it also sucked because, you look at Cincinnati, they were a good team. They just had a bad game. If you have a bad game, you're out. You can't play 162 games and just put it all on the line for a
I'm on
game.
the opposite side of the spectrum with you, DJ, because I love that feel, and I feel like it's a great way to kick off the playoffs when you're seeing the best pitcher of both teams. You're seeing the best.
But you're not seeing the best pitcher. That's the problem. Is they can't put their ace in that wild card game because 2 days later they're going to have to play game 1 of the next series. That's the issue.
Yeah.
They usually do put the ace in because if you're in a 1-game series, you have to almost always play your ace.
Okay, so let's put it in perspective. Francisco Liriano pitched for the Pirates. Was Francisco Liriano the ace of that series? No.
I mean, maybe not the Pirates per se. Every team does it differently, right? But I'm saying for a majority of the time since 2012, since this 1-game has been implemented, the ace is almost always pitched for those teams with a few outliers, right? But most of the time they pitch. Another exception was when the Tampa Bay Rays played the Indians in 2013. They pitched Alex Cobb, but that's because they had to play another 1-game series. They were tied with the Rangers, and David Price had pitched that game, so they had to pitch someone different. But I get what you're saying is that some teams are going to – it's a different strategy. You have to strategize different. But
going back to your other rules, what rules – it sounds like the only one you like is the expansion of the playoffs.
I like the expansion. I like basically what you said, maybe like a four wild card games rather. I don't want to see 16 teams because I don't think more teams should make the playoffs than teams that miss it. I still think playoffs should be held to some sort of prestige, but I do like the idea of maybe having a 12 teams in the playoffs rather, and just seeing more competition in it, because I think there's a lot of teams that are usually right around the 90 win mark that don't make the playoffs every year.
But doesn't that make it elite? Like, doesn't that make you want to win those last games of the series and make other?
But to go off of your point too, with the Pirates and the wild card, it's like you got to win the division then if you want to play more games instead of just that one game.
Good. Like, the division should mean something. Hey, let's go to somebody else and get another take. Let's go to the pinstripe player over there, the Yankee killer. Go ahead.
Well, let's start off. Judge hitting 296 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's the MVP.
Shut up.
Going to baseball, this kind of goes for all sports. I'm an old head. I like the game the way it is. I didn't like that they implemented you have to pitch to either 3 batters or finish an inning. I don't like the little time clock that they got going on. I understand that they're doing these 7-inning doubleheaders and the Texas shootout kind of style for this COVID season, which I completely agree with. But besides that, get rid of all of them, go back to the way baseball used to be. That's it.
Let's go down to the other Yankee fan we have here. He's actually wearing a hoodie for some reason when it's 86 degrees outside. Go ahead there, Puff Daddy.
I don't see, I don't really, the 7-game doubleheaders, the 7-inning game doubleheaders will probably be pretty cool to see, because those games will probably, you see the starter go a lot longer than you would do in a doubleheader. Expanding the playoffs, you don't really see 91 teams make the playoffs anymore. Don't forget the Oakland Athletics last year won 101 games, and they were the wild card team out of the AL. You got to take a base out like that, speed up the game a little bit. Baseball is not getting any younger. The fans of baseball is not young. You have to get the young kids to buy in watching the baseball game for 3.5 hours. I did it last night, watch the Yankees and Red Sox play, but got to make the game a little younger, got to make it a little bit quicker.
All right, over to Paul, and then we'll get Anthony, and then we got to take a break. Paul, go ahead.
I like the guy on second base. I do. It's just something I think that's going to speed up the game as well, like Jeff said, instead of it just being jug out. And even then, though, I watched the game last week. They went in extra innings. They still went 13 innings. I don't understand sometimes the strategy, like they're just letting the guy swing away. I think I would bunt the guy over to third and then let a base hit or a pop fly score the guy from third. But that's just me. But I like that one. I'm tough with the one on expanding the playoffs because, I think then you start watering it down a little bit. I think the elite team should get there. You win 100 some games and win your division, you should be in the playoffs. So I mean, that's it. The rest of the rules, I'm okay with them.
All right, let's go over to Anthony. Go ahead.
Yeah, I like the runner on second too. I like the idea that you're making people execute a part of the game that hasn't been executed in years. I mean, just punt the guy over and then he's on third with 1 out. No one can punt in the MLB anymore, it seems like, and I like making teams kind of have to learn that skill all over again. And I want the teams that are able to bunt to be rewarded a little bit in extra innings. So I like that rule.
I'm with you. I think we talked about it last week. Bunting as a whole has been completely a lost art. So I'll be interested to see if that ever comes back and it's ever a really good tool in the utility belt of teams across the way. Guys, we're going to take a break and pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about testing in fall sports. Will it be the final straw? Can you imagine this being the last piece of the puzzle that finally closes the door on the OHSAA and schools around? We'll also talk about, do you smell what The Rock is cooking? The XFL is coming back under Dwayne The Rock Johnson. We'll talk about if we can see it lasting this time. This is round 3 for the XFL. With no Vince McMahon, can this thing thrive? Finally. And we'll also talk about our question of the day. Would you rather win against all odds in a playoff situation or be guaranteed if you lose, you're the top draft pick and get to draft a player at the top of his game for the next 10, 15 years? We'll see where you stand on that, as well as the G. Burbick Farms, What's Your Beef? All that and more coming up on the YSN Power Hour.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
And welcome back to the YSN Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with a few of my friends. Guys, when we look at everything as it stands right now, we talked about the rule changes to baseball. We've talked about a couple other things, naturally the OHSAA, the fall testing that we've kind of already touched on. As a parent, as a spectator, as a coach, wherever you're at on the spectrum, do you think that COVID testing is going to be the last straw, the final straw, or are we going to see one more chapter, maybe 2 more chapters of this book before we begin in the 27th or so for football? I mean, let's start with Anthony. Go ahead.
So, are you asking if you think that this is the end of the conversation, and do we think that, or do we think there's going to be more progression and there's going to be another kind of thing that, I mean, I think we'll find some middle ground. And I think thinking that the high schools are going to test everybody is kind of it's kind of silly. I think they're going to realize that that's kind of an impossible task, and I think we'll have symptom checks and temperature checks and everything like that going forward. Because I mean, if you require people to test, then you can't do football because schools can't afford it. Someone's going to test positive. It's going to be inevitable, and then the whole week's going to be shut down and it's just a train wreck if we're forcing people to test in fall sports.
Quinn, let's get it over to you because obviously you have a lot on the line for the fall because basketball is right behind. Talk to me about where you see the testing and do you think this will be the last go at it for the OHSAA?
I mean, naturally, I hope that it's like the last thing like that they need to do to make sure something happens. But to me, the way it all seems like it's been playing out, and it seems like I don't know the word I want to say. It seems like it's just kind of like delaying the inevitable almost, to where they're just kind of pulling things out to keep it delayed and give them more time to do something else. But naturally, I mean, I want football, I want basketball, so I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do.
We'll go unmute you here, Paul. When you, as a parent's perspective, do you feel like, if you had to absorb the cost of these COVID tests and you had a son or daughter playing football for 10 weeks and you knew that you were going to have to do 10 of them or more if they make the playoffs, would you absorb that cost, or will that be the final straw?
I think there's a lot of parents that would absorb that cost to let their kid play. If it's on the schools, if testing is on the schools and they have to pay for it, you'll see the end of fall sports for right now. At least the contact ones that they're going to force these kids to go into. Nice, Forrest Stanley. I need a little more sun. But yeah, if it's up to a parent, I mean, the parents want their kids to play. I mean, they want their kids out there participating in the sports, so they'll pick that up. I think for sure a parent would pay that. They're gonna complain about it all the way to writing that check to the school or whoever they got to, but they'll do it. But I think if the governor and the Board of Health does not make an alteration to this rule and they say, no, we're going to keep this implemented, fall sports will be done. You'll see it. It'll be all done.
Jamie, if you were a parent or a player, I mean, would you be willing to absorb a hefty kind of load to pay out of your own pocket for these tests to play football?
I mean, looking at it from a player's perspective, I definitely would want to, but knowing myself, I wouldn't have had enough money to flip the bill. I would have needed my parents, and I think you can kind of look at it as there's a lot of schools that just naturally their families are wealthier and they're willing to flip the bill, but then you get some schools that just don't have as wealthy of families, and I think they could really be affected.
Ty, same question to you.
I mean, I'm in total agreement with Jamie, because I think the thing about sports and what's beautiful about sports, especially at the high school level, is that anyone can participate. It's not about class or social class or wealth or anything, but then if you make the parents absorb the cost of the test, I think it suddenly makes it that. It's about the parents that, if the parents are making more money than those kids, I would hate to see kids from low-income families not being able to play sports because their parents can't afford it, and that it's cruel, and it's unfair to those kids that that's one of their only outlets of things that they can do as after-school activities, and they should be able to play. It shouldn't matter as far as it's concerned. But I'm also in agreement with Paul and the others in that if it's up to the schools, we're not going to see any sports. But I mean, I've also been saying that for a while too. So
I just don't think the schools can absorb the cost. I get where you're coming from, but I just don't think, let's say it's $100 per kid, and that's just a number I'm throwing out. I have no idea what the cost is of a COVID test. But then you have $100 times however many players you have. Let's say you have 50 kids playing football times 10. That's a pretty big cost, guys. And not every school could absorb that amount of money just out of their pocket, because we talked about it earlier. If you got $50,000 that you're bringing in, let's say, and it costs $50,000 for these tests, what are we doing? You have to have some money and have a revenue generator, because at the end of the day, you're definitely not going to want to lose money, but you have to be kind of in forward position. You got to be in drive, right? The coaches always talk about if you're not in drive, you're going backwards. Neutral is backwards. Reverse, obviously, backwards. So if you're not in drive, you're not going anywhere. So when you look at the revenue generation, if it's $50,000 to get these kids tested and you bring in 50 or 49.5, is that a different number than if you bring in 50 and it's equal? I guess that's the question. Anthony, back to you.
Well, and then the other thing, even if they can, let's say they can barely afford it. Let's say it costs 50, and they have maybe 60 or 65%. You're putting a lot of money into sports, and then leaving a little less for, just schooling is cost of education and everything else. So even if they can technically afford it, they still have to look at how much am I putting into sports compared to school. and that's just going to be a tough position to put schools in if that's the case that if that's how it ends up being, if the schools have to foot the bill. I don't know how many schools can afford it, and then I don't know how many schools could afford it and then also afford to put on, schooling and a high level of education.
And
Also-
guys, there's a huge thing we're missing here, and Brubaker Farms brought it up a little bit. Scott Brubaker, I would assume, is behind the logo there. I gotta believe that there's going to be some people that want some dollars back if there's no school, if there's no football or no sports, right? Because that's the way that you get people to buy in. It's property taxes, it's general income taxes, things like that. Do you think there's going to be all kinds of trouble if they cancel schooling? I mean, Paul, you're in a school. You don't necessarily have to speak on behalf of the school you represent, but do you think as a parent, you just sit there and go, well, wait a minute, what am I paying for? And do I get, my money back if there's no school to speak of?
That was actually, it's funny he brought that up. It was actually a topic of conversation when, we went on hiatus in March. In some of the board meetings, some of the community people said, well, what are we paying for? We're paying our teachers to virtually teach our kids for an hour or two a day, and the rest of it's on us at home. What are we using that for? So, I mean, that's a tough one, because how do you say I want some of my tax money back?
Right.
The sports, and listen, I'm 100% pro sports all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. But in all honesty, like, if people are going to complain about there's no sports, well, there's bigger things to complain about. I mean, this thing is killing people out there. And you talk about our school, we had a one call. A coach tested positive in our school. So there was a positive test. They canceled that sport for the next week or so and tell those kids to stay away from each other. And, it's happening. It's going to start happening. And the bad thing is they need to be more concerned about their kids being in school. If your kid is getting education, then that's great. If not, don't send your kid to school. You have that option. You can homeschool your kid. You can virtually learn your kid at home. And that's one of the options that are out there right now. But I mean, for everybody, I know we are a sports broadcast company and that's our job. And I get that. But like the big picture of people are like, well, I want some of my tax money back then if my kids aren't playing sports. Well, how about you worry about your kid getting an education? Because odds are your kid's not going to go pro or going to college for sports. He needs to do something
2%.
else. I mean,
2% is the number that you always see. So
that's huge.
This leads us into a perfect segue into our next kind of topic. And Paul, this was your topic that you brought to the table this morning. If there is no sports at your particular school, or let's say the entire state shuts down sports, but let's say another state has it wide open, is it acceptable to move your son or daughter to another state to play that particular sport across the country? Anthony, you're nodding your head. Yes, go ahead.
Countless people travel a lot to play in these travel teams or whatever. If your son or daughter is elite at their sport and your school is not playing, then if you have the means to do it, then you should put them in the place where they're going to be able to play their sport, because they're gonna make a lot of money doing it in college and everything. So yeah,
maybe
if you're that top 2% in the sport, well, I just meant like you're gonna get a scholarship or whatever.
Right.
Then you have to, if you have the means. People already do it for travel teams in the summer. They'll travel to Georgia, they'll travel to California, whatever it may be, just to play on an elite travel team. So I see no reason why they wouldn't do that for a high school team as well.
All right, Beachbound, this is your topic. You have the floor, sir.
The part that I was talking about with this, and you hit on it, the first part of it, was traveling to another school in your state. Going out of state, I mean, that's pretty extreme. And if somebody wants to do that, then more power to them. But the article I was reading about is there was some local schools at the county and their league was going to shut down. Like, so I'm just going to use off the top of my head, say Canton. The Canton area was going to shut down their schools. Well, the thing was, some people had commented, well, what if I want to send my kid to a different school? So say, take, for instance, Canfield. Say Canfield shut their school down and said, we're not going to play sports. We're not going to do anything here. But, Austintown is. How do people feel about, well, okay, I'm going to take my kid to Austintown, if the school is able to let them come in. And that's the other thing is open enrollment. They're going to let kids come in there. if you come from another place. I mean, I think it's pretty extreme because it's opening up a huge Pandora's box, because if you do that, now all of a sudden you're going to have parents who live in that school district saying, wait a second, you're letting Billy come in from this other school district, and now he's taking my kid's spot because he's a better athlete, which he could be, but now my kid's missing out because you're letting these other kids come in because they don't have sports over there. Now you're making it their problem that school doesn't have sports. I mean, I think it's a really slippery slope if you try to do that. And I think that if schools, I'll start allowing that, if that starts happening, that you're going to see a lot of uprising.
Well, let's go over to our expert, Mr. Betos.
I'm going to say yes. If we say Ohio shuts down sports and you're a parent, go to that kid or your daughter, boy or girl, and you pretty much begging to put it out there. Like, do you want to play sports this year? And if you said yes and you want to move to another state, then me and my daughter or my son and I are going to move. I'm going to keep my family here, and by when that sport is over, then we will come back and I will do it. And, having someone come in from another school, say like if Boston Town doesn't play and South Range does, and that kid wants to come play at South Range, there's no problem with that. And he takes that kid's spot. He's a better athlete. That other kid had a little competition. It gets you better as a person. It gets you more fired up to try to play.
I'm interested because every time open enrollment happens, and listen, I'm an advocate for open enrollment, but every time open enrollment happens, you think about how it disrupts the system that you built a year ago. So a kid that was looking maybe a junior to start his senior year, if he's not up to snuff, so to speak, or there's a problem on the coaching staff, a kid comes in from another school district and now he's starting. It's a conversation that parents are having with coaches and school districts. I think it's different from out of state, right? If West Virginia is playing football and Ohio is not, and you move your kid to West Virginia, you better be pretty damn sure that your kid's going to be a scholar athlete at the next level, or else you're moving for no reason at all. So we're close enough to the West Virginia border. I think you would see a lot of that. With the fact that PA is playing and Ohio is not, concerns me a little, or to this point, Ohio is not going to play as we keep getting the information. If they don't play and Pennsylvania does, I think there's a lot of people that are looking at that border saying, hey, we're not that far away from the Keystone State. Jamie, is this a situation where we could be looking at troubled waters?
I definitely think so. And, kind of touching on what Anthony said first, a lot of people do move to play travel ball and stuff like that. I don't think you'd see that really for the high school sports. The only sport that you get recruited from actually playing on your high school is football. Baseball, you got to play travel. Basketball is AAU. Soccer, you have all these different types of clubs.
You got about 6.
But, for me, I wouldn't move to a completely different school. Like, I wouldn't go to Girard or West Middlesex, completely change my education just to play a sport. If it was kind of like Hubbard doesn't offer sports, you can still get your education here, but then go play football at Girard, then that is something that I would actually consider.
Yeah, and interesting from EB, from beyond the arc, so to speak, he's saying pretty sure per the OHSAA, if your school doesn't offer that sport, you're allowed to transfer without repercussion. It'll open up a big can of worms, but technically you should be allowed. Big loophole there. And everybody seems to be a lawyer or know a lawyer at this point as a student athlete or a parent of a student athlete. Ty, when you look at this, is this something that you would pull the trigger on if you were in the place of a student athlete, senior in high school?
I mean, if it's up to playing, I think any student athlete would, if it means I could play if I move to a different school. I don't like the idea of if maybe the state one. Yeah, okay. If you want to move to a different state to play a sport, if you're elite, okay, that's fine because you're basically looking at this is a long-term thing for you. But for as far as like local schools, like if you're moving from like Austintown to Campfield to Girard, whatever, because one school, I think that's on the OHSAA then, because I think if you're going to shut down any schools, I think it should be in unison as a statewide thing. You should be, some schools are open, some schools are not, because I think you're really just hurting not only the kids, but you're hurting the playoffs, the state championship by not representing all schools. I think if it's an all or nothing decision, either every school plays or every school doesn't.
There is a lot to unfold here, guys, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it throughout the week as Governor DeWine picks up and resumes his press conference tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'm sure everybody here is going to be all ears Tuesday through Thursday as the governor has a lot of questions awaiting him in his return. Guys, real quickly, I want to get to this because this was as about as big as news as you had this weekend. The XFL canned the second time. Vince McMahon saying we're not going to do it, and lo and behold, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson picks up the pieces and says for $15 million, he and as a Redbird Media Group pick it up. And the XFL, regardless, has been bought by The Rock. Do you like this move? Do you think this is something that the XFL, which I thought was good entertainment, can thrive in the coming years under the tutelage of one of many people think he should be running for president of the United States? He's going to be the CEO of the XFL. Jamie, we'll start with you. Big grin.
Yeah, definitely all in on The Rock. Always been a Rock fan right there. I got like 3 different things. But yeah, I'm all in on it. He's an absolute great businessman. He started in the WWE. He's a great actor. Really everything he does, there's been a lot of success around it. So I'm all in. And when he is the CEO, you're going to know your role and you're going to shut your mouth.
I just put it on a T for you because I knew you were going to have something for me. Let's go to the dynamic duo down there. Guys, Quinn, I know you're not necessarily an XFL fan, but do you like The Rock buying in?
No, I think personally, I think that's a stupid business move by him. I mean, he's had a lot of good ideas, I guess, and a lot of good business decisions, but that one was terrible for me. The way I see it is if Vince McMahon couldn't make it work, I don't think anybody can. Me and Jeff kind of had a conversation here while Jamie was talking. The XFL to me is kind of the off-brand NFL in a way where you're not getting the best athletes. So why bother with it kind of sort of thing? Because, like, I don't think they're pipelining it into the NFL anyway. Very few
Little
of them,
bit.
if any. And, I mean, I had a couple good buddies of mine that were playing in the XFL, but they couldn't cut it in the NFL. They just couldn't make it. So they went to the XFL to play and keep playing football. I just don't think it's going to work.
We go to basically the XFL of YSN. It is Jeff Bezos. Your thoughts?
You can't hear you. So, Quinn put it the best way out there. You know, it's like, no offense to kids that play Colt League baseball, but it's like Colt League baseball compared to Class B baseball, right? You know, you got those Class B people, those kids are the elite of the elite, and Colt League kids are not as good as those Class B players are. So, you know, I could see if it would work for the XFL, if you would, like, that would be like a training facility to get, like, guys better from different NFL teams. You can send them down to the XFL and be like, okay, this is what you need to work on. But it just won't work, you know. It didn't work for Vince McMahon because of COVID-19. He got hit, and they were actually having pretty good ratings on ESPN because football wasn't around then. And it was awesome to have football in February and watch, but I just don't think it will work.
Paulie.
I think if they treat it to what it was supposed to be when it originally came out, which was entertainment, you know, don't try to compete with the NFL. Don't act like you are the, 1B professional football league. You know, it's a minor league. It's a minor league system. That's exactly how it should be treated like. It's a minor league system to the NFL, and it's entertainment. And The Rock is all about entertainment. Him and, he's got this Titan games out there and some other game shows that he has done in the past. So he knows how to entertain people as a wrestler and an actor as well. So I think if they treat it like that, hey, this is entertainment. It's going to be, away from NFL. So when the NFL's done, we're on and we can highlight our show. I think it could be successful again. If they try to think that they're going to compete with the NFL, then no, it's going to fall on its face, no matter who's running it.
Ant?
I love it. I mean, I thought they had a great framework for it the first time it started. I thought Vince McMahon kind of gave up on it a little bit because of the COVID-19 stuff, and I thought they had a great blueprint of something that could be really successful. And I think The Rock is going to make it better. To Paul's point, I think people will accept a drop in talent for a raise in entertainment. That's what the XFL will be. They can't go as far as they did the first time for entertainment. And
I would love it.
And like the instead of the coin toss, let's have people run at each other and try to grab the ball in midfield. There was some stuff they did the first time that just didn't work, but they're an entertainment, and if they kind of embrace that and like they were doing in the first couple months of their existence before COVID-19, I think they'll be fine. I mean, they said The Rock knows how to entertain people. and he'll really run this well. I think it's a good move.
All right, Ty, do you have a take on this, or you want the first pick at the next topic here?
I'll have a take on this, but it's pretty much I'm in the minority because I'm in agreement with Quinn there. I believe that if the owner of the biggest sports entertainment company in the world and Vince McMahon can't make this work as entertainment and get viewers, I can't see The Rock doing it. I don't know, and I feel like as far as it being treated like a minor league thing, college football is already that, basically. I think college football is looked more – it looks better than the XFL did. In the few games that I watched of the XFL, I just rather would watch college football. If it's a choice between college football and the XFL, I'm just going to watch college football instead.
No disrespect to Vince McMahon whatsoever. I'm a huge fan, but he hasn't been the same in the last decade that he has for the years and years prior to it. I think The Rock is going to bring some fresh blood to this, maybe a little bit of edginess that it needs to survive and to be, the people's elbow. He's the people's champ, ladies and gentlemen. He is the people's champ if you smell what The Rock is cooking. So hopefully
and he played football too. So
I hope it goes better than this one.
He was a third string at Miami U.
You're all clowns. You can't talk at the same time. So, figure that out, and then we'll go from there. Guys, quickly, we'll go to our question of the day. This is not up for discussion. You have to pick one. You can win against all odds, and let's say you're in the playoffs. You can win against all odds or have a chance to win against all odds, or you can lose in the first round and get the top draft pick in your spot. If you know what I'm talking about, we're looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. Which one would you do and why? We'll start with Ty.
Now, when you say win against all odds, is that in a championship game or is that just a regular?
You have a chance to win against all odds. There's no guarantee you're winning a Stanley Cup or whatever the championship may be. You can either try your hand or you can lose and get a top draft pick for the next 10 to 15 years.
For me, I think if I'm looking at it from a business perspective, I'm thinking lose and get a top draft pick, because then you're looking at the longevity of a team. You're looking at getting a guy that is super talented in whatever sport it may be.
Bingo.
And you got a guy that's going to give you a chance to win against all odds in the next 10, 15 years because you have that guy. I'm more of a stashing away and banking the talent for years to come rather than go all at it in one go.
Jamie.
Never been a big future guy. I like to live in the moment, win at all costs against all odds, go all out all the time. Even when the Cowboys are like 2-10, I'm pulling for them all the way. I don't want them to tank and get a better draft pick. Just go for it. Go out there, play the game, and win it.
Love it. And
Herm Edwards, baby, you play to win the game. You win it.
Take it easy. Don't break stuff back there.
Win at all odds, win at all costs. I'm instant gratification all the way. With my luck, I'd lose and then get Ryan Leaf as my first draft pick, and then I'd be in a lot of
All right, Paul.
hey, if we're quoting coaches and owners, man, I'm gonna quote the Raiders owner. Just win, baby. Just win. Al Davis. Yeah. I mean, I hate the fact that teams do that sometimes, that they intentionally tank games to just get a better draft pick. It's like, if you've got a good enough team to go out there and win, then win. Now, if your team's terrible, you shouldn't be in the playoffs to begin with. And if you are, then shame on them. That's why a watered down playoff makes it look like that. But no, if you're in the playoffs and you're there, win. Go at it. Try to win everything you can.
You done? You good?
I stopped talking, didn't I?
Okay. Just Florida Stanley laying down the law. All right, go ahead.
What, you want me to go?
Yeah, you go first.
No, I'm losing. I'm taking that first pick. I'm guaranteed the first top pick in the draft. Like, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to build for the future where I could actually go out there and win. I mean, if I'm taking the odds to possibly win the championship game, I mean, you make it to the championship game, whatever. I don't. You're not guaranteed anything then. So, yeah, you might win it, but odds are probably against you. Like Paul said, if you don't have one of the better teams, then what's the point in even trying when you can guarantee yourself a first pick?
JB.
I'm going to go win at all odds. It's just the competitive nature out of me probably that says it. But, I understand that you get the first top pick, you get the top pick in the draft, but what if you're a bust? Like, what if that's the case? Like, you just get drafted number one and you turn out to be a bust and you don't turn out to be good. You could be a mid-round pick in the first round. And
Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady, right? He's right. But, like, you could be a mid-round pick in the first round and go win at all odds and win a national championship or win a championship, and they look at you and go, oh crap, like Joe Burrow. I'm sorry, Joe Burrow was a 5th round pick 2 years ago. Now he's first number 1 overall because he just went out and completed it out all odds.
Shut up, Eric.
All right, guys, it is now time for the G. Burbick Farms. This is how we put a bow on our show. It's the What's Your Beef, brought to you by G. Burbick Farms. Visit them on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Tell them YSN sent you. Quinn, you got the first punch here.
Good. It's Bailey chiming in on Facebook, but he can't be on the Power Hour. What the hell? That's bull.
Ooh, language.
Ice. Yeah, like the Ice Queen over there in the bottom right-hand corner. All right, Elsa, on to you, Betos.
I'm going to go with Ty. Now, listen, Ty up in the corner up there, okay, in the middle of the screen. You came at me last week's show and said that that I would root for Italy in, like, the Olympics. Come on now, man. I'm the biggest USA fan there ever will be in the entire life. That's my beef.
All right, rebuttal.
Well, I guess my beef is also going to be the fact that Betos doesn't know the difference between a corner and the middle of the screen. You said top corner of the screen. I don't know, man. First you can't spell, and then you got to tell me where I am. I don't know. You might be directionally challenged too, and you're still coming at me. I don't know.
You put me in a body bag. He's wheeling me out.
You scumbag! You scumbag! You're in the middle. All right, let's go to the Rock's number 1 fan. Stage yours.
Beefing with anyone that doesn't think Aaron Judge is the MVP. My man hits for average. He hits bombs. He's a great defensive player. He's got a cannon of an arm. Aaron Judge, MVP. Jeff Betos, you do not love America more than me. And I will stand by that for all time.
All right, let's go to Anthony Hartwig down in the Jeff, take note, left-hand corner.
Just in general, because this isn't anything specific. I just, from roaming the internet the last couple of days, I think people just need to learn how to properly disagree with someone. I mean, if you're never going to come across someone that sees things exactly the way you see them, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing, and to be okay with people that see something different way than you do, and it's perfectly okay. And I'm sick of this whole idea. If you're not on the exact same realm that I'm at, then you're automatically, a bad person. And I'm sick of that kind of mindset.
I can appreciate that on a show about arguments. And speaking of arguments, the number 1 argumentative person in our panel, Beachbound Paulie, go ahead.
My beef, it's an old beef. It's a new beef. I mean, just piling on the OHSAA and the governor right now. I mean, it's like you're making this carrot even further and further out in front of everybody, and you're dangling it out there. Just end it. Either tell us we're going back and we're going to play, or just say, sorry, guys, it's over with and it's done. I mean, I know it's a generic beef, but it's getting to a point right now, like you start talking to everybody and everybody's getting excited. Hey, we can start doing this. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, nope, here's another roadblock you got to get past. And it's just getting ridiculous. So cut it and be done with it, or let us go and let us roll.
My beef goes to parents right now. I feel like as a parent now, I think that we need to all take a step back and let the leaders lead and stop putting pressure where we don't need to be. We haven't been part of this conversation for a while now. You've got elected officials that are putting, and granted, they're not always going to make the right decisions, but you have to let them make the decisions. We've elected them. They've won the process. They've won the opportunity to make decisions and do right, do wrong, whatever it is. So parents, if you're out and you're going to absolutely axe the OHSAA, please understand that they're losing as much money, if not more, than you are by not having these seasons. Don't always point the finger at them. There's things that we don't know about that are happening in back rooms. And obviously, if you haven't seen the conversation or lack of conversation between the OHSAA and the state, like I said in the open, it's just a really bad game of hot potato and who wants to deliver the bad news first. So hopefully parents can understand that it's not just the OHSAA and understand things before you talk about them. I guess that's my biggest beef with the scenario at hand. If you don't understand what's going on, if you haven't been keeping up, either read up on it or stay out of the conversation. So that's my beef, brought to you by G. Burbick Farms. You can visit them on New Buffalo Road in Columbiana. But right now, guys, we're wrapping this show up. And here in the studio, we got some fresh pizza. And we'll give them a free plug. Also, I want to give a free plug to my good buddy. We call him Uncle Gary, Gary Leiniger, the owner of the Lisbon Dairy Queen. Make sure you get down there and take advantage of some hot eats, cool treats down in Lisbon. Thanks, guys, for another great show. Thank you for tuning in. I know we're in overtime. Apologies on this side. But let's face it, there's not a whole lot else you can watch, and that's better than the Power Hour. Guys, say see you later. We'll see you tomorrow at 3.
Deuces.